As we inch closer and closer to the playoffs, I start to realize that I'm looking at the NFL and how crazy it's been record-wise and where teams are going, who's been standing out. It's also interesting looking over at college football, which we're going to do very briefly. And then there's fantasy football, which is always a delight, even when I'm losing. And that is why this episode is going to be packed. There are new segments, and I cannot wait for you guys to take a look with me. Let's get started. Let's not waste any more time. Let's first look over the college football playoff currently, the rankings that came out last Tuesday, and see what is going on because this is the second rankings. Obviously, this is not the last ranking. We're going to have to wait till after conference week before we get the last rankings. This is what we have so far. Number 9 versus number 8 would be Notre Dame versus Oregon in Eugene. Number 7, Ole Miss would host number 10, Texas. And Texas gets the nod over Oklahoma and BYU. And that right there would be held in Ole Miss. Number 11, Georgia Tech would face Texas Tech in Lubbock, and number 12, USF, who currently leads all non-power 4 in the rankings, would play number 5, Georgia in Athens. And 1, 2, 3, 4 is still the same. It's Ohio State, Indiana at 2, Texas A&M, and Alabama. That is what the current playoff picture looks like, and that is a very quick segment. Hope you guys are continuing to watch that because there's a lot of big games this week, including Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Pittsburgh, Notre Dame. There is a lot of matchups that can shake up the playoff race, so keep a close eye on that. As we transition over to fantasy football, I won my fantasy 181 to 127. It really came down to the fact that Jared Goff blew up on Washington. Denver's defense played incredibly good. You also had Drake London, who put in an epic performance. And really, I only had 2 players who were in the single-digit marks, so I played very well there. And my opponent, he also had a good game. It wasn't enough. And I was able to win, go to 5-5. I am currently number 4 in my league. If things go right in these next few weeks, I could be up at number 2. Potentially, I'm trying to chase number 1, which is going to be very hard. Big number 1 is currently only having 1 loss, so it's going to be really tough to work with that. Number 2 gets a bye, and that's something I really want, so we're going to continue to work at that. There was no moves I made over free agency, therefore, we're immediately just going to get into the lineup. My current MVP candidate, Drake May, is going to get the starting nod. Josh Jacobs, he continues to score, he continues to be consistent, and he put up 18 points for me. He is going to be my number 1 running back, with Javonte Williams coming back from the bye, and Quinshon Judkins, who put up 11 points last week against New York. My wide receivers are Drake London and Stephon Diggs, and Stephon Diggs and Drake May are going to be playing Thursday, so by the time you see this, that game will already be concluded. 2 Chargers, Cameron Dicker, and the defense making up the rest of the lineup. And right now, my opponent, I hope he's paying attention, because currently, he doesn't have a quarterback in the starting position, and it's going to be very embarrassing to win a matchup he doesn't have his quarterback in, but you know what? This is why you got to pay attention. Right now, I should be very comfortable to win this game unless he makes some actual moves. Before we get into my Power 5 ranking, I'm actually going to take a look at the current playoff pictures of the AFC and the NFC. Kind of gives you a good idea on why I think these teams are doing very well, not only by their record, but how they're winning. And that should also influence who my top 5 teams currently are right now. So let's get started with the AFC picture. Number 1 is Indianapolis at 8-2, and they get the nod over Denver because of conference record. They also get the nod over New England because of conference record. They also have that win over Denver, which is why they are number 1. Denver is number 2 and New England is number 3. Number 4 being Pittsburgh at 5-4. To think that the top 3 teams, almost nobody thought that these teams were going to be excellent. Denver had the best likelihood of making the playoffs, but not even winning their division. That's the crazy part. And all these teams are 8-2 and playing absolutely amazing. And so it's very interesting to see the picture because with Indianapolis being on bye, there's going to be a new number 1 momentarily if one of those 2 teams can win. Should be very interesting. And then the Chargers 7-3. You know, there's just a game down from Denver. Then you have Buffalo at 6-3 and Jacksonville at number 7 at 5-4, getting the nod over Kansas City because they beat Kansas City earlier. That's the current playoff picture, which means that Denver would play Jacksonville, New England would play Buffalo, and Pittsburgh would play LA, who they just lost to. That's the picture in the AFC. Very tight and very explosive, but all over the place. It's not that close in many of the regards because multiple 8-2s, a 7-3, 6-3, and then 5-4s. There's a big spectrum there. In the NFC, things are different. Number 1 and number 2 is Philadelphia and Seattle at 7-2. The reason why Philly has the number 1 spot is because they have a better in-conference record, which gives them the edge. Number 3 is Detroit, which they get the nod over Chicago because they have beaten Chicago one-on-one, which is like the number 1 indicator at that point. And then number 4 is Tampa Bay at 6-3, but it's also getting really close. Carolina at 5-5, which is the closest. If Atlanta can start putting it together, they're still in the mix in my opinion. And then number 5 is LA, and LA doesn't get the nod over Seattle because Seattle has a better in-division record. Therefore, LA sits at 5, Chicago at 6, and the Green Bay Packers, who if they won, they would have been at number 2. They're currently now at number 7 at 5-3-1. The one who's slightly out is San Francisco at 6-4. This is a much tighter race, and much tighter, especially at the 1 and 2 position. That one can switch throughout the weeks, and that right there is pretty scary. And Philadelphia is a good team. They have their flaws. Seattle looks a lot better. And this is where I get my inspiration for my Power 5. Let's get into that. At number 1 is still Seattle, an explosive performance over Arizona. They are comfortably in there. I put them over Philadelphia because right now they look like the more complete and powerful team on both sides of the ball. Number 2 is still Indianapolis. They had a big win. Jonathan Taylor put up a great performance, 244 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, absolutely amazing, and they beat Atlanta in Berlin. They remain at the top of the AFC at the number 2 spot. I flipped New England and Denver. I put New England higher. Their win over Tampa Bay was very good, while Denver's win over Vegas was actually super sloppy. Offensively, they look terrible, and really, it's that defense that's holding them together. And if I wanted to look at it objectively, right now, I think New England would beat them. And then number 5 had a toss-up between LA and Philadelphia. I decided to go with LA, even though Philly beat them. I really should put the Eagles in. The Eagles, they just have games where I'm scratching my head. Really, Green Bay is overrated. Let's put that out there. And you only beat them by 3 points. You only put up 10 points offensively. That right there is kind of clumsy, and I have no idea how Dallas is able to put 40 on Green Bay, but you can only put up 10. That right there is kind of concerning, but Philadelphia right now is my first out. So they're like at number 6. Really, they can jump back in with a win because you got one of those 2 teams who are going to be fighting, and that we'll get to that in just a second. Last week, I went 10-4 in my picks. I know I'm kind of speeding through this video. There's just a lot to put in, so I'm going to find a flow to it eventually, but I want to be sure I get to all the segments at a very timely manner. Right now, 10-4 is my record of last week, which puts my overall record to 87-62. The wins I had last week, I had Denver winning, I had Indianapolis winning, and that one should have been a little bit more spread out, but it wasn't. I also had Chicago had a comeback. That one I also got. Baltimore beating Minnesota. That one, I mean, it was kind of sloppy early on, but kudos to Baltimore. The Jets won, but really the Jets won because the Browns were incompetent at the end. So congratulations, New York. You got 2 in a row, but I have no idea what happened between you and New England. Everybody else will find out. Seattle, the Los Angeles Rams, Detroit, they all dominated their matchups, and that was very impressive to see that select few of teams that ended up winning. And then lastly, I had the Chargers winning on Sunday night, and I had Philadelphia winning on Monday night. The ones I got wrong were Buffalo, which that one just came as a complete surprise. I wouldn't have never saw that one coming, especially with a Miami team that's so disorganized right now. Tampa Bay, that one I give credit to New England. They just played a really good game. Carolina, no excuse. You lost to New Orleans. I don't know how you lose that game. And the other one is Jacksonville when they blew it against Houston. 10-4, look good. I want to do better this week, and I got 15 games, 14 that I'm going to be looking at today. Without further ado, let's get into the predictions. In the first NFL game in Spain, in Madrid, is between 2 bad teams right now, the 3-7 Washington Commanders and the 3-7 Miami Dolphins. Right now, I'm looking at 2 different teams. Okay, Miami got a big, momentous win against Buffalo, but it doesn't really do much. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs or even be close to making it, but they are playing Washington, who, without Jaden Daniels, is a complete and hot mess. They got absolutely smothered by Detroit, and they got smothered by Seattle the week prior. Therefore, with that, you have to kind of look at it from this perspective. They are both 3-7, but one team is clearly worse than the other. Give me the Miami Dolphins to win this matchup 36-14, claiming the first ever victory in Madrid. Next up, a divisional matchup between the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons, 2 middle-of-the-road NFC South teams, both talented in their own respects. Carolina had the worst loss they could have possibly had to New Orleans. I don't know how you lose that game. It wasn't by a lot, but it was to New Orleans, and still, that's pretty bad. As for Atlanta, you've been slipping, losing multiple in a row, but it was a close matchup and a very competitive one against Indianapolis. They should actually feel very proud about that. Carolina has been very odd to me. Got blown out by Buffalo, big win against Green Bay, and then you lost to New Orleans. I don't know what to make of this team. This team is just kind of odd, to say the least. And despite the fact that they kind of get it together, it's not consistently. Atlanta, despite the fact that they're losing consistently, they're playing good in those games in general. And Drake London looks like he's took a step forward ever since coming back from injury. I'm going to take the Falcons. It's at home. I know the last time that these two teams played, Carolina shut out Atlanta, but I believe Atlanta will get their revenge, win 28-26 in Atlanta, and try to get back in that mix because Tampa Bay is dealing with injury. Therefore, the NFC South is still wide open, even though it still favors the Buccaneers. And speaking of the Buccaneers, the next matchup is between two 6-3 teams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Buffalo Bills. This is a really tough matchup if you're Tampa Bay because it is in Orchard Park, it is in Buffalo. You are facing Josh Allen, but Josh Allen also just got done putting up a dud against Miami. Therefore, I don't know how to feel about this matchup. Tampa lost to a better team than Buffalo did, and that is very concerning. In a matchup like this, you could actually make the argument that Tampa Bay should be favored in some way. I'm still going to take Buffalo to win 28-27 because it is in Buffalo, and I believe Josh Allen will bounce back. It's going to be a nail biter, and Tampa Bay, you're getting unlucky right now. You need to find a way to make distance between you, Carolina, and potentially Atlanta if they're able to get back off their feet. So Tampa Bay, this is a big one, but I don't think you're going to win it. It's also worth mentioning if Buffalo loses this game, assuming New England wins, that is going to make it that much harder for Buffalo to recapture the AFC East, and they don't want to start on the road. That's going to be a problem for them. So this really is a must win if you're Buffalo. Next up, we have the Texans and the Titans. This one kind of feels like a dud of a game because both teams are bad. Houston did have that big comeback against Jacksonville, and Tennessee continues to struggle. Of course they do, because right now they're not well coached. They let go of their coach, Mike Vrabel, who is now succeeding in New England. So clearly, Vrabel wasn't the issue. I just want to throw that out there. When I look at this matchup, I think Houston has a chance to sneak into the playoffs. They still are close. I mean, they're just slightly below Kansas City and Jacksonville. If they can chase Jacksonville, that would be huge. They have the advantage right now with that win. They need to continue to chase, and chase. When you look at it from this perspective, Houston is definitely not going to catch up to Indianapolis. I'm already going to make that prediction now. In this matchup, this one is very easy. I'm going to take the Texans to win 30-12. What does Tennessee have to offer? They have nothing. They're looking to rebuild, get the first overall pick, maybe trade it for some picks. Who knows what they're going to do, but give me Houston in this one. They're still fighting. Next up, we have the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. The last time these two teams played, Chicago blew a big lead to Minnesota in the fourth quarter. Chicago last week managed to make a big comeback against New York in the fourth quarter. Therefore, there's a lot on the line here. Chicago is currently 6th in the NFC race right now, and a win here continues to keep them above Green Bay, and that's something they're desperately going to need. On the other hand, if you're Minnesota, you're not out of it just yet. I mean, you're still very close. 4-5, a win here, you're back to 500, and you're still in the mix. You got to win this game. Chicago, if they want to have a chance at the playoffs, I think this one you also have to win and hope for a Green Bay loss to give yourself some comfort room. But because right now, any slippage by Chicago is detrimental to them. Therefore, I'm going to take the Bears to win 31-27. Close game. I believe they'll get their revenge, but if they don't, you might as well start panicking. You do not want to slip. It's like a story from last year when they were doing very good. After the Washington game, they fell apart. You don't want that again. Next up, we have the Green Bay Packers and the New York Giants. The Giants just benched Dart and are going to be starting Jameis Winston this week. I think it's probably wise to do that because the Giants season is completely over, and you might as well let Dart, get his reps, kind of learn a little bit more, and have him ready for next year, which the Giants could be very explosive if they manage to get things right then. And they also fired their head coach. That's something very notable to mention, which the firing happened a little while back. This is obviously not new at all. With the Packers, this team is overrated. I mean, I understood they were probably going to lose to Philly, but 7 points, come on. Your defense actually played a good game, and you still lost because your offense just hit a dud. And now that puts into question Jordan Love, which I hate that because I'm a big fan of Jordan Love. This is a beautiful game for them because right now the Giants look like they're about to start folding their season. Therefore, a win here would keep them in balance with the playoffs, and if they can get a Chicago loss, they can jump up another spot. Let's say they can get a Detroit loss, that would push them back at the number 1 spot. Therefore, when you look at this matchup, Green Bay has a lot to play for. I believe they're going to win this matchup 24-21. They just need to pray and hope that Chicago and Detroit hit speed bumps, which is very possible for both teams. Next up, it's Cincy and Pittsburgh, round 2, this time in Pittsburgh. Last time they played was Thursday night, and Cincinnati absolutely stunned Pittsburgh with their big win. And Joe Flacco was playing a great game, and really, he's been playing amazing. That defense for Cincinnati has been betraying Cincinnati that entire time. I don't understand why. They have a terrible defense, actually makes the Cowboys look peachy. The biggest issue with the Bengals is nothing to do with offense, it has everything to do with the defense. On the other hand, Pittsburgh, good game one week, bad game the next week. Good game one week, bad game the next week. It makes no sense. Looking at this matchup, I just learned that Joe Burrow is back in practice, and he is supposed to potentially come back around Thanksgiving time. So really, if Cincinnati can just float in there and stay, they can get Burrow back, they can explode into the rest of the season and make a push for the playoffs. But it starts with this one. Can they beat Pittsburgh a second time? Pittsburgh has to worry. They're at 5-4. The Baltimore Ravens are starting to catch up on them. And now you also have Cincinnati that's still sitting in there. And even though they're at 3-6, they still have an opportunity. Therefore, you have to be very careful if you're Cincinnati. I believe it is Pittsburgh's game to win, 17-14. They're going to get their revenge. Defense is going to play very well. Bengals put up a little bit of a defensive effort, but the Bengals just need to float in that range. And if they can win this matchup and get a Baltimore loss, that would be ginormous for them. And if they can just hang in there before Thanksgiving, there's a chance the Bengals can end up winning this division, which is just kind of crazy to say when Burrow went down. Next up, we have the Chargers and the Jaguars. Now, a little bit of news. Travis Hunter is taking surgery. He's out for the rest of the year, so he's no longer in play. But Jacksonville still has very good weapons with Brian Thomas Jr. and their recently acquired Jacoby Myers. That should help them at least stay in this matchup. With the Chargers, here's the situation. The Chargers are at 7-3, a game right behind Denver. Obviously, they have the loss to Denver. If they can win and Denver loses, they'll be right in the mix. They won't get to the top of the AFC West because obviously, here's the situation if you're LA. LA is 7-3. Denver is 8-2. You already beat Denver this year. If you can get a win in Jacksonville and you can get a loss from Denver, which means you have to cheer for the Chiefs, which that is very terrifying to think about, then the Chargers would take lead of the AFC West, which is something they desperately need. I don't think they're a good road team in the playoffs. They really need to win this division, and that's going to be really tough. They got to find a way to keep their head above Kansas City and catch up with Denver. That's what they need. And this is a good time to do it because Jacksonville is obviously reeling. Jacksonville just got done losing badly to Houston. So you're going to get one or two things, a deflated Jacksonville team or a very enraged Jacksonville team. Even if you put the enraged team in, I still have the Chargers winning this matchup 27-17. I love what Justin Herbert is doing this year. He's been playing lights out. They have those games where they're just kind of questionable. As for the moment, the Chargers are on a really good streak and I expect them to win this matchup. Here is what I think is the game of the week. The Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams both are 7-2. The winner takes the lead of the NFC West. When I look at both these teams, they're both top 5 because offensively, when you look at the Rams, they have such a terrifying balance on offense. With Devontae Adams, he's been having a great year. When Puka's in, he's been having a great year. Kyron Williams has been playing great. Stafford's playing at an MVP level. And defensively, they're holding their own. They're doing pretty well. You're playing and hosting a Seattle team who is just so horrifying to watch because offensively, JSN is having a breakout season. His first year as the #1 wide receiver. He's already over 1,000 receiving yards. That's unbelievable. Sam Darnold has just showed he's no longer considered a bust. He can play with the best of them. You get him a good wide receiver, he's been playing super well. And now you also got some moves in free agency. That works. The trade deadline. Obviously, Shaheed's in there and Cooper Kupp. This team right now, both teams really have unbelievable offenses. In this matchup, it's going to come down to one of those two. Which one is going to be better? I'm going to take Seattle. I believe Seattle's the best team in the NFL right now. I believe they're going to win 41-34. This is going to be the game of the year, according to what I think is going to be score-wise, really. I believe Seattle is just a tiny step above LA. Next up, you have San Francisco and Arizona, the other NFC West matchup. Right now, San Francisco's just been dealing with injury bugs and having to deal with a quarterback situation, whether you go with Mac Jones or Brock Purdy, and that has always been very challenging either way. San Francisco has to keep pace with some of these bottom NFC playoff dwellers like Green Bay and Chicago. They need a win. Luckily, Arizona is not going to do do that great. Now, Brissett, he's making Kyler Murray's job less and less secure because he's playing good ball, but that Seattle game was horrifying. I believe that San Francisco is going to win this matchup 26-17. They got to keep pace. If they can keep pace, they can hop over some of these teams and try to plant themselves firmly in the playoffs where they can thrive and explode. You got to hope, if you're not wanting to see San Francisco in the playoffs, you're cheering for Arizona. You're hoping that they can't catch up with some of these teams currently sitting at the bottom of their divisions. Only time will tell. Next up, we have the Ravens and the Cleveland Browns, and these two teams, I mean, the Ravens with Lamar Jackson are starting to get back into playoff talk. They are just a game behind Pittsburgh, which they need to chase and catch up with and hope that Cincinnati wins, which will still make that part of the division very tight. Because right now, every game is by one. I mean, Cleveland's 2-7, Cincy's 3-6, Baltimore's 4-5, Pittsburgh is 5-4. They're all within punching range if you think about it. Cleveland, I feel like they have no chance. Even if they were to win this game, I think that they don't have it together. They don't have the right quarterback in place. I think it should be Shador. As much as the Browns don't like it, they should put Shador in. But after that loss to New York, I could not believe you jumped on a hard count, which I feel like everybody in the stadium knew that the Jets weren't going to snap that ball, which is just wild to think about. I believe this matchup will be close. Cleveland does have some little dynamos on offense like Quinshawn Judkins, and I believe that he's going to have a good game. And Baltimore's defense has shown weakness throughout the year. Baltimore will win just by a touchdown, 27-20. If Baltimore wins and Pittsburgh loses, we have a new leader back in the AFC North. Big matchup, Kansas City and Denver. This one is huge for both teams. So here's the situation. Kansas City needs a win, push themselves back in playoff form. If Kansas City gets a win and LA also wins, and that means Jacksonville loses, then Kansas City would jump into the playoffs, just barely being in that wild card spot, but still within playoff range. With a little bit more, they could still capture the AFC West, which is still terrifying to think about. If you're Denver, you're on a 7-game winning streak. You continue to win and keep pace above LA. And with Indianapolis on bye, if Denver wins, they'll be the #1 team in the AFC. And that right there is just something that is going to blow some people's minds, because Bo Nix is having the #1 team, and that right there would scramble a few heads. LA, they need Kansas City to win to push Denver down so they can hop up and be in that position. Potentially #3 would be the best they can do. So there's a lot at stake in this game. LA needs Kansas City to win, Kansas City needs LA to win, and Denver has to win to keep above both those teams. What do I think is going to happen? I believe that the streak will be snapped and Kansas City will win 17-16. I believe that Mahomes, in these kind of games, he does shine, and in those last few minutes, that's when it hurts the most. And Denver's offense is going to get exposed, and that right there is something they don't want. And you can only lean on the defense for so long before it doesn't work anymore. And so I think Kansas City will win. And then you have Sunday Night Football between Detroit and Philadelphia. Both teams are powerhouse heavyweight juggernauts in those divisions. Therefore, when I look at this matchup, it's a big AFC. It's a big notion for the NFC playoff picture, because this is what happens. If Detroit wins, assuming that Seattle or LA wins, those teams will be #1. One of those two teams will be the #1 team if Detroit can win, and obviously Detroit will be pushed up to the #2 spot. That's as high as they can go. If Philadelphia wins, they continue to stay above, and if Philadelphia wins with the Cowboys losing Monday night, the chances of Philadelphia calmly and comfortably securing a back-to-back divisional win for the first time in a long time for the NFC East is very possible, even better for them. This is a hard matchup because Detroit is unpredictable. They are aggressive, they thrive in these kind of games, they thrive in these kind of environments. Therefore, in this matchup, I believe that Detroit will win 38-35 in another game of the year situation. If Seattle wins, Seattle will be #1, Detroit will be #2, and Philadelphia will be #3. And that right there is something Detroit needs, because Chicago and Green Bay are not that far behind. And then the last game, Monday Night Football, is between the Dallas Cowboys and the Las Vegas Raiders. The Cowboys have a very tough road ahead following this. They got Thanksgiving game against Kansas City. They have games with Philadelphia coming up. It's going to be really hard. They also have Detroit in the near future. winner, Dallas should be thinking about, I hate to say it, they should start thinking about tanking soon, because I don't believe they have a shot to make the playoffs at this point. With that said, the Raiders neither, they don't have a shot either. In this matchup, Dallas's offense is far greater than the Raiders' offense, and that goes without saying. I believe that some of the defensive moves will help Dallas win this matchup, and I believe they will win it by a considerable amount, 31-24. Still, defense has holes, it's not coached properly, the owner is not that great, and even with a Dallas win, it's still hard to see them in the playoffs. So this one really doesn't have a scenario or matter. It's just Dallas wins and that's it. And that'll do it for today's episode. I know, a very jam-packed episode, and now that we keep getting closer and closer to the playoffs, I'm going to continue to lean on scenarios and see what happens with certain teams if they win or lose, and what needs to happen, who's cheering for who. And just so we're all clear, this is the new portion of the end of the episodes that I cannot wait for you guys to see all these scenarios. However, since I'm going to be traveling, these next 2 weeks are going to be without episodes, but after that, I'll be back in the game, and that's when crunch time really hits, and that will be very fun to watch. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you do, please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe, and go follow me on all my social medias. And thank you for the success on all the shorts, and you guys are doing very well. Thank you guys so much for watching all the shorts. I had 3 last week that hopped over 1,000 views, so thank you guys so much. That means a lot to me. I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. So have a great day. Take care. I'll see you then. Peace.